Hello, today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week so you can learn how to make money in the glorious crisis that awaits us. This week we have Warren Buffett saying that the banking crisis isn't over and more banks are going to fail. We have Twitter getting into the crypto space with Elon Musk activating things like trading with eToro. And we have very good inflation news, not for food inflation, but inflation overall. Let's get started. Overall, we do have the inflation numbers coming down. It came in at 5% yearly in March. That's a drop of about 0.3. So the way that they calculate in the report the inflation, remember, is the number that they give you is the annualized number. That's why it comes out at 5%. So March came in at 0.1, February was at 0.4, and the expectations were at 5.2, and it came out at 5, which is obviously great because prices are finally coming down for now. U.S. Bureau of Labor said that housing remains the key driver of inflation. And I'm going to give you some information here on food inflation, which is actually still over 10%, which is not bueno. Markets overall, United States and Canada, mostly higher. Overall in the world, they were mostly higher as well. Europe and Italy and Istanbul were the biggest winners there. Latin America, mostly higher. Argentina inflation, which is what awaits us in the United States, is over 100% in March. So imagine you're going out to buy eggs, for example, and they cost, I don't know what eggs are costing in the U.S. now, like $5 a dozen or $8, something like that. Imagine just 1 month to the next, it doubles in price. Can you imagine? They are having new elections in October. And if you didn't know, they've been voting for socialists for the last 70 years when they, in the 1900s, were the most rich nation in the world. Africa and the Middle East was mixed, Egypt being the most positive there. And then the far, far east, we have mostly positive markets as well, with the Nikkei in Japan being the most positive. Bitcoin and crypto, only 4.5% of the entire global population actually invest in crypto, which is, I thought, was amazing. FTX is reporting that they were able to recover $7.3 billion in assets, and they're they're actually considering rebooting the exchange, meaning opening again to customers. We had a great week for Ethereum and Bitcoin. Thursday, Ethereum got above $2,000 for the first time in 8 months after investors put uncertainty surrounding the long-awaited Shanghai upgrade behind them. And Bitcoin for the week was over 8% positive, closing at about 30,300 and change. Remember that number, it's wildly volatile, but I generally take the number on Friday and Saturday. Commodities. Food prices are up 10.3% in March as inflation continues to bite. Eggs, if you guys remember, 4 weeks ago, we had a few conspiracy theories about the eggs. First, there was reports that there were eggs that weren't laying. There were chickens that weren't laying any eggs. This came back down to the feed, so they were literally manipulating the feed to make the chickens not lay eggs. And then remember all those factories and eggplants and everything that were going up in flames? Well, they actually found out that eggs actually stop the replication of the pandemic virus, which starts with C and then ends with Ovid. I won't say the complete name so they don't ban this channel too. So eggs saw a rise of 30%. But there's no way they would do that on purpose, right? To make sure you don't buy eggs. They wouldn't do that, right? No way. Crude rose for his fourth consecutive week on the tightening global market. IEA, the International Energy Agency, is warning of even higher prices ahead. U.S. crude went up by over 2%, and Brent went up over 1%. They closed at 82.52 and 86.31, respectively. And we have a lot of people now going to what they consider to be kind of these, not distressed assets, but the right way to phrase it would be these, the assets that people invest. I forgot, there's a specific name for them, I forgot. But the assets that people invest in when times are tough, things like oil, gold, cryptos. Now we're starting to see a move again. Gold for the week went down 0.12% to 2005. It got just shy of the record high, and silver went up by 1.84% to 25.43. Financial and banking news. The IRS chief, the tax department in the United States, is revealing hiring plans for armed agents. Now, why would they possibly need armed agents for? Armed with guns, but you're not allowed to have any. Warren Buffett says that we aren't over the bank failures, but it's a good thing that consumers have always been taken care of. So we essentially haven't had any failures for consumers, even though the banks have failed because the government has stepped in and secured all the deposits. And 71% of six-figure earners are now living paycheck to paycheck. If you guys are watching overseas, $100,000 in the U.S., it's kind of like the standard of where you want to get to when it comes to salary, because that's a really good salary, but you should probably move to somewhere like Florida, which has a lower cost of living. 5 states are legislating to replace the dollars with gold as dollars in the deep crisis. Texas sent bills to create a state-issued digital currency backed by gold. And if you didn't know, the US dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. There's another crisis as well where people are going after dollars in Bolivia, which have mostly avoided kind of this economic crisis and inflation crisis that we're living around the world. Now there's people, this is the first time that there's been now a parallel market for dollars since 2011 because of the concerns over the economy. And France makes it illegal to pay in cash with over $1,000 because soon you won't be able to pay anything with cash in France. Political news, Biden said on Monday that he plans to run for re-election in 2024, but not prepared to announce it just yet, even though he just kind of announced it. And the Swiss government temporarily halted the things in your arm for the pandemic for high-risk individuals. Now, why would they do that if it's safe and secure? Economic news, I don't know if you can hear Money over here snoring. Money, I'm trying to do the video. Economic news. The once great city of San Francisco has a record 30% office space vacant. In addition to that, if you didn't know, Cash App founder was stabbed to death in San Francisco as well. It's extremely dangerous now in San Francisco. And the U.S. banks are lending. There's a slump in lending now as they lended the least amount of money in the last weeks of March, and it went down to a record. Let me repeat that because I think I got tongue twisted there. There's a U.S. banking slump where basically banks, the amount of loans that they've given out have gone down by the most on record. And obviously, an economy needs loans from banks to be able to function, which is not good overall for the U.S. economy. Corporate news, speaking of banks, the largest bank in the United States, J.P. Morgan, with $3.67 trillion in assets, generally a bellwether for the economy, meaning that people look to the bank to kind of see how the overall economy or parts of the economy is doing. They recorded record profit of $12.6 billion, up from $8.3 last year, or an increase of 52%. And American Airlines fell over 9% after their profit was well below expectations, with high fares and rising global travel affecting their bottom line due to consumers obviously not being able to spend as much money on things like flights because of the overall inflation is starting to eat into their household expenses. Montana is the first bank to ban TikTok. And on Monday, Indonesia is proposing a free trade agreement with some minerals in the United States after Biden created new guidance for the EV tax credits that include mostly domestic production. In addition to that, the countries that are in a free trade agreement with the U.S., because they have a lot of the good stuff that we need for the batteries. And in technology, Ample is wrapping up its testing of fresh Maxim processors since there's been a significant sales decline for them. They're hoping that this is going to reverse after they come out with those new processors. And Elon Musk is creating an AI to compete with ChatGPT because he obviously doesn't have enough to do. And Twitter is partnering with a financial firm called eToro to show real-time stock and crypto information. Elon Musk said that he actually wants people to be able to buy and sell crypto on Twitter, and he's building ground for users to be able to send money to each other as well. All part of the plan of his Master X app, the all in everything app, he said. Investment products, I should have put this in the political news. Bud Light parent Anheuser-Busch InBev lost more than $6 billion in market cap after they announced a partnership that wasn't approved by executives of a 26-year-old transgender influencer, Dylan Mullaney. Bar owners and distributors reported a sharp drop in Bud Light sales over the past week. And in international events this week, we have two over 2 feet of rain in 24 hours in Fort Lauderdale that fell. It's about 25.9 inches, a new record in the state of Florida. The amount of rain that has fallen in 24 hours. It was so much water that they even had to close the airport. Can you imagine that? Everything was underwater. And an interesting facts this week, archaeologists discovered the oldest heart organ ever. They're globally trying to investigate it, get the DNA, and it managed to petrify over the last millions of years. That's your news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, the preppers were right.